Hello everyone and welcome to the biology lecture series, and today we are going to discuss the topic human reproduction. So in the previous lecture we have discussed about the male and the female reproductive system. Okay, and we'll continue this lecture. So this lecture is the continuation of the previous lecture. Okay, so in this lecture what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss the process of gametogenesis. So what is gametogenesis? Formation of the gametes, production of the gametes. This is known as gametogenesis. So we'll see how gametogenesis takes place in the male as well as in the females. So male reproductive system, you know what is the primary sex organ there? Testes. Okay. So if we talk about the male reproductive system, this male reproductive system, what is the primary sex organ there? So sex organ can be primary sex organ or they can be secondary or accessory sex organ. Let's talk about the primary sex organ here. So it is testes in males. Okay, so testes will produce the male gamete. What is the male gamete? Male gamete is the sperm. Okay. Another function of primary sex organ is to produce the hormones. It produces the sex hormones. Okay. So male sex hormones, these are known as the androgens. Okay. And what is the example of the male sex hormone? This is the testosterone. Then, okay, let's talk about the female reproductive system. In female, what is the primary sex organ? So this is, what is the primary sex organ here? Ovaries. So they have the pair of ovary. Males have pair of testes. So ovaries, these are the primary sex organ and they produce the female gamete, which is known as the ovum or the egg. Apart from this, it also produces the hormones, okay, known as the ovarian hormones. And what are the example of these hormones? Estrogen as well as the testosterone, estrogen as well as the progesterone. So these are the example. Estrogen and progesterone. Okay, now let's move back to the slide. So the primary sex organs, these are the testes in the male and these are the ovaries in the females. Now what is the function of these primary sex organs? They produce gametes. So what is the male gamete? This is known as the sperm and the female gamete is known as the ovum. So these gametes are produced by the process known as gametogenesis. So how can you define gametogenesis? It is the production of the gametes. Clear? Now, the production of gametes in the male, this is known as spermatogenesis, and the production of gametes in the females, this is known as oogenesis. Okay, we'll talk about various stages that are involved in the spermatogenesis as well as in the oogenesis in this lecture. Clear? Now let's start with the testes, which is the primary sex organ in the males. Now, in testes, the immature male germ cells, so these are known as spermatogonia. Spermatogonia, these cells are obviously, these are diploid. They consist two sets of chromosome. So these immature male germ cells, which are known as spermatogonia, they produce the sperms by a process known as spermatogenesis. Clear? So what is spermatogenesis? Formation of the sperms. ठीक है? और spermatozoa, this is known as spermatogenesis. Clear? So how can you define spermatogenesis? Formation of the sperms. And this spermatogenesis begins at whenever the individual it reaches the maturity. Whenever the male it will reach the puberty, then the spermatogenesis will begin. So at puberty, what happens? There is the this primary sex organ. These get activated and they start producing the hormones, which is the testosterone. Clear? So what is happening at the puberty? The primary sex organ, which is the testis, this testis, start producing the hormones. The male hormone, what is the male hormone? Testosterone. So it will start producing testosterone. Clear? And then there will be the development of the secondary sexual characteristic. There is the development of secondary sexual characteristic. Such as deepening of the voice, presence of the pubic hairs, and the sperm production also start. And thirdly, what is happening? Sperm production also start. Mean male gamete formation starts. And production of the sperm, this process is known as spermatogenesis. So spermatogenesis start. Now what is puberty? Now puberty is the stage of development during which adolescents reach the sexual maturity characterized by physical and hormonal changes that enable the reproduction. So what is happening during the puberty? The adolescence phase transform into the sexual phase. So what is happening here? So puberty is the stage of development during which the adolescents reach the sexual maturity, and there is the activation of these primary sex organs. And what is happening here? There is a lot of physical as well as the hormonal changes. Clear? So there is a lot of physical means there is a lot of change in the appearance of the individual also. Like there is a development of mammary glands in females. So this is the physical change. And there are a lot of hormonal change also. The hormones are also secreted. These hormones are secreted by the primary sex organs. And these hormones, they help in the development of the secondary sexual characteristics. Clear? Now, the spermatogonia, which are known as this immature male germ cells. Singular of the spermatogonia is spermatogonium. So these cells are present on the inside wall of the seminiferous tubules. When we were studying about the male reproductive system, we studied about the seminiferous tubules. So these spermatogonia, these are present on the inside wall of the seminiferous tubules. So within the seminiferous tubules, spermatogenesis takes place. So these spermatogonia cells, this will multiply by mitotic divisions and they will increase in the number. So this is the first step here. The spermatogonia, this is multiplying by mitotic divisions. What are mitotic divisions? Mitotic divisions, these are known as the equational division. So equational divisions, what happens during the equational division? If the cell is diploid, it will remain diploid. If the cell is haploid, it will remain haploid only. Clear? So first is the increase in the number of these spermatogonia cells. These spermatogonia cells, I've already told you, these are diploid. Clear? Now what happens then? Each spermatogonia is diploid and it contains 46 chromosomes. If you talk about humans, humans have 46 chromosomes. So what is the diploid number here? 46 chromosomes. So if the condition is 2n, it will contain 46 chromosomes. If the condition in n, it will contain 23 chromosomes. Okay. Now, some of the spermatogonia cells, which are known as the primary spermatocytes, then they undergo meiosis. Clear? Now, meiosis takes place in the primary spermatocytes. You can say that. Okay. And these primary spermatocytes, these arise from the spermatogonia. So after meiosis, what will happen? There will be the reduction in the chromosome. Okay, there will be a reduction in the chromosome number. Clear? Meiosis is known as the reductional division. There is a separation of the chromosomes, which leads to the reduction in the number. So you should know about this also. You must have studied, okay, when you have studied the cell cycle and cell division, you must have studied about the mitosis and the meiosis. So mitosis is the equational division, where there separation of the chromatids takes place, and during meiosis, separation of the chromosome takes place, which results in the reduction in the chromosome number. So primary spermatocytes should be diploid because they are arising from the spermatogonia, which are also diploid, and they will undergo meiosis. Then what will happen? It will reduce the number of chromosomes. So the primary spermatocytes completes the first meiotic division, okay, which is known as the reductional division, leading to the formation of two equal haploid cells. Okay, these are known as secondary spermatocytes, which have only 23 chromosomes. So what is happening here? You know, what does this mean by first meiotic divisions? So you have the meiosis. This is known as the reductional division. So meiosis, it takes place in two phases. First one is meiosis 1, second one is meiosis 2. Okay, so during meiosis 1, the reduction of chromosome takes place. Reduction of the chromosome number takes place, which is due to the separation of the chromosomes during the anaphase. Okay, and this results in the formation of two, okay, haploid cells. So from the diploid, two haploid cells are formed. Then what happens? These two haploid cells, they will undergo meiosis 2, which is same as mitosis, means it is a kind of equational division. Okay, and finally, at the end of meiosis, what will happen? Four cells are produced. So four haploid cells are produced here. Four unique haploid cells are produced. Clear? So at the end of meiosis, four cells are produced. So we are talking about the first meiotic division. So after first meiotic divisions, which takes place in the primary spermatocytes, two haploid cells are formed, which are known as the secondary spermatocytes. And they will contain, okay, half the number of the chromosome. They will contain 23 chromosomes because they are haploid now. Clear? Now, the secondary spermatocyte undergo the second meiotic division to produce four haploid spermatids. Clear? So initially we have spermatogonia. Spermatogonia, these are diploid, and where they are present? They are present in the inside wall of seminiferous tubule. Then spermatogonia, this will, okay, some of the cells are known as the primary spermatocytes. These primary spermatocytes are also diploid, then they will undergo meiosis. Okay, so after meiosis 1, what will form? The secondary spermatocyte. Okay, so secondary spermatocytes will be haploid. And how many cells are formed? Two cells are formed. Then from the secondary spermatocytes, what are formed? After the second meiotic divisions, haploid spermatids are formed. How many spermatids? So after meiosis, four cells are formed. So after meiosis 2, what will form? Four spermatids are formed. So these spermatids will also be haploid. Clear? So till here it's clear. So here you can see this is the diagrammatic sectional view of the seminiferous tubule. So here you can see spermatogonia cells. Okay, the singular is spermatogonium. Then here you can see the primary spermatocytes. The Satori cells, they give nourishment to the spermatogonium. We have already studied. Then primary spermatocyte is seen here, which will be diploid. It will form the secondary spermatocyte, which will be haploid because it is formed by meiosis. And there you can see spermatids are also present here. Spermatids are also haploid. And then here are the spermatozoa, which are also known as, which mature into sperms. So spermatid then transform into spermatozoa. Okay, so what would be the number of chromosome in the spermatid? So it will be obviously haploid because they are formed after the meiosis. The chromosome number will be 23 here. Okay, now the spermatid, they transform into the spermatozoa, also known as the sperms, by the process known as spermiogenesis. So how can you define spermiogenesis? So it is the transformation of spermatid into the spermatozoa. Clear? This is known as spermiogenesis. Now after spermiogenesis, the sperm head becomes embedded into the Sertoli cells. So we have seen the Sertoli cells also in the previous image. Spermatozoa, okay, they are now known as the sperm. So the sperm head, it becomes embedded in the Sertoli cells and are finally released from the seminiferous tubules by the process known as spermiation. So how can you define spermiation? It is the release of the sperm, okay, from the seminiferous tubules. This is known as spermiation. So you have to remember this spermiogenesis as well as this spermiation. Clear? Now, spermatogenesis start at the age of the puberty due to the significant increase in the secretion of gonadotrophin releasing hormone. Okay, so I've already told you whenever the male individual it reaches the puberty, then only the spermatogenesis will start. And this start because of the secretion of the gonadotrophin releasing hormone, which is secreted from the hypothalamus. Okay, so what happens at puberty? There is a significant increase in the secretion of the gonadotrophin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. So it is secreted from the hypothalamus. Now this hormone stimulates the anterior pituitary gland, which is also known as the master gland, to release the gonadotrophins. Clear? So gonadotrophins, they are secreted by the hypothalamus, but they are released by the pituitary gland. Okay, so this leads to the release of the gonadotrophins, including follicle stimulating hormone, which is known as FSH, and luteinizing hormone also, which is known as LH. Now these hormones trigger the spermatogenesis. Okay, the process of sperm production in the testes. Clear? So whenever the organism attain maturity, then the gonadotrophins are released. Okay, follicle stimulating hormone is released, luteinizing hormone is released. Okay, so these gonadotrophins, then they trigger the formation of the sperms in the testes. And where in the testes? In the seminiferous tubules. Now spermatogenesis enables males to produce the mature spermatozoa, or you can say the sperm, okay, capable of fertilizing an egg during the sexual reproduction. Clear? So sperm and the egg, they will fuse with each other and they will form the zygote, which is the unicellular diploid structure, and from the zygote embryo will be formed, and from the embryo the new individual will form. Okay, clear? Now This gonadotrophin release hormone, we know that it is a hypothalamic hormone. Now the increased level of gonadotrophin release hormone then acts at the anterior pituitary, this we have already seen, and stimulate the secretion of two gonadotrophins. What are these two gonadotrophins? Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Okay, and this lead to the spermatogenesis. Now the luteinizing hormone acts at the Leydig cells. So Leydig cells are also known as the interstitial cells. We have already discussed this in the previous lecture. Okay, they are known as the interstitial cells, and these Leydig cells were very important. So luteinizing hormones act on the Leydig cells which are present in the testes and stimulate the synthesis and secretion of the androgens. So Leydig cells is involved in the secretion of the male hormone and is also involved in the spermatogenesis. So what is androgen? Androgen, these are the male hormones. These are the male hormones. And what is the male hormone? Testosterone. Okay, now it stimulates the cells to synthesize and secrete androgens, primarily testosterone. Now androgens, these are the male sex hormones, okay, which are crucial for the development of secondary sexual characteristic and the maintenance of the male reproductive function. So these sex hormones are very important here. They are involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristic, okay, and they are also involved in the maintenance of the male reproductive function. Now androgens in turn stimulate the process of spermatogenesis. Clear? So Leydig cells are very important because they are secreting these male hormones, male sex hormones. Now follicle stimulating hormone act on the Sertoli cells, okay, and stimulate the, so luteinizing hormone, it acts on the Leydig cell, whereas follicle stimulating hormone, it acts on the Sertoli cells and stimulate the secretion of some factors which help in the process of spermiogenesis. Okay. Now transformation of spermatid into spermatozoa, this was known as spermiogenesis. The follicle stimulating hormone act on the Sertoli cells in the testes and it stimulates the cell to secrete various factors that aid in the process of spermiogenesis, which is the maturation of the spermatid into the mature spermatozoa. Now these factors include nutrients, growth factors and protein essential for the sperm development as well as for the sperm maturation. Okay, now let's talk about the structure of the sperm. So this is also very important topic. Okay, so this is the image showing you the structure of the sperm. Now, so sperm is obviously, it is a microscopic structure and it is composed of what? What are the parts of the major parts of the sperm? It is the head, then you have the neck region, then there is a middle piece and then there is a tail. So there are four parts of the sperm: head, neck, middle piece as well as the tail. Okay, so this is the head region. Head region consists of what? It consists of the acrosome, which is this tip of this head, and it consists of the nucleus containing the chromosomal material. Then here is the plasma membrane which surrounds this sperm. Then there is a neck region here. Then you have the middle piece. And here you can see mitochondria are present here in the middle piece. This mitochondria, these are known as the energy currency of the cells and these provide energy for the swimming. So sperms, these are motile. Okay, and this tail help in the swimming. Alright, so for the swimming, the sperms require energy and this energy is provided by the mitochondria. So mitochondria produce energy in the form of ATP. Clear? It is known as the powerhouse of the cell and ATP is known as the energy currency of the cell. So as the female gamete is non-motile, so sperm, okay, it has to travel to the egg for the fertilization. So how does it travel? So it swims with the help of this tail. So these are the four, okay. So the sperm is composed of all these components: head, neck, middle piece as well as the tail. Now let's talk about this structure of the sperm. So the plasma membrane, it envelops the whole body of the sperm. Now the sperm head, it contains the elongated haploid nucleus. So, sperms, they are produced by meiosis. So obviously, they will be haploid. Okay. So it consists of a haploid nucleus, and the anterior portion of which is covered by a cap-like structure known as the acrosome. So we have also seen the acrosome in the image that I have shown you. This acrosome is very important. Okay, let's study about this acrosome now. The acrosome, it is filled by the acrosome enzyme. Okay, and what is the function of this enzyme? These enzymes, they help in the fertilization of the ovum. So what does this enzyme do? So these enzymes, they break down the proteins and the other molecules present in the zona pellucida, which is the layer of the ovum. Okay, allowing the sperm to penetrate and reach the egg membrane. Clear? So fusion or the fertilization of the egg cell or the fusion of the male and the female gamete won't be possible if the enzymes are not released by the acrosome. Clear? Now the middle piece possesses numerous mitochondria, we have already seen, which provide energy for the movement of the tail that facilitate the sperm motility essential for the fertilization. So I've already told you the sperm has to reach the female gamete. Female gamete is non-motile. Okay, so you have to swim, and this swimming, it requires a lot of energy which is provided by the mitochondria. So this energy is generated by the mitochondria. Now the human male ejaculates about 200 to 300 million sperms during the coitus. What is coitus? It is known as the sexual intercourse. So during the coitus, 200 to 300 million sperms are released. Okay, but for normal fertility, at least 60% sperms must have normal shape and size, and at least 40% of them should show the vigorous motility. Clear? So this is very important for the normal fertilization of the egg. 60% of the sperm should have normal shape and the size, and 40% of them should be motile. They should show vigorous activity. They should be motile so as to reach the egg cell. Now, sperm released from the seminiferous tubules are transported by the accessory duct. So this is the role of the accessory duct. They help in the transportation of the sperms. They also help in the storage of the sperms as well. Okay. Now let's study about the function of the accessory ducts. So accessory ducts in the male reproductive system, they serve several key functions. First is the transport of the sperm. Okay, so they provide a pathway for sperm from the testis to exit the body during the ejaculation. Okay, next is the maturation of the sperm. Now the sperm undergo further development and gain motility as they move through these ducts. And last one is the storage of the sperms. So the epididymis stores the mature sperms until the ejaculation. Okay, epididymis, it is a part of the male accessory duct. Okay, so epididymis stores the mature sperm until the ejaculation. Okay, and then we have the facilitation of the ejaculation also. Okay, this is the last point. So these ducts contract to propel the sperm and the semen out during the ejaculation. Clear? Now let's talk about these accessory ducts. So secretion of the epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicles, as well as the prostate gland. These are essential for the maturation as well as the motility of the sperms. So this epididymis, vas deferens, the seminal vesicles, these are the So these are the accessory ducts, and these are the accessory glands, prostate glands. Okay. Now epididymis, it helps in the sperm maturation and the storage, and it also helps in improving the motility of the sperm. Now vas deferens, it provides nourishment and protection to the sperms, enhancing the motility and viability again. Then you have the seminal vesicles. It contributes energy-rich fluids to the semen, supporting sperm motility and the survival. Now next one is the prostate. It produces secretions that liquefy semen and maintain the sperm viability as well as the motility. Clear? Now, The seminal plasma along with the sperm, it constitute the semen. Okay, so this is how the semen is formed. Clear? Now, what are the constituent of the semen? First is the spermatozoa, which are known as the sperms. So, male gametes responsible for the fertilization. So, these are the sperms. So, semen consists of the sperms. Now, seminal fluid, it produces, okay, these are produced by the accessory glands. Okay, so seminal fluid, okay, also known as seminal plasma, this along with the sperms, this constitute the semen. The semen also consists of the fructose, which provide energy from the sperm. So, fructose is a kind of a sugar. Then it consists of the prostaglandins that aids in the sperm motility. Then it consists of the enzymes which assist in sperm liquefaction. Then citric acid, which provides energy from the sperm, and zinc, which is essential for the sperm function. And it consists of the water also, okay, which is medium for the sperm transport. Okay, so these are the constituent of the sperm. Now, the functions of the male accessory ducts and the glands are, okay, maintained by these testicular hormones, which are known as the androgen. What is the androgen? Male hormones, male sex hormones such as testosterone. Okay, the functions of these accessory ducts as well as glands, these are maintained by the testosterone, which are secreted by the primary sex organs. Okay, whenever the organism they reach the puberty. Now, the process of formation of mature female gamete. Let's talk about oogenesis now. Okay, till now we were talking about the spermatogenesis. Now let's talk about the oogenesis. Now, the formation of the mature female gamete. Okay, this process is known as oogenesis, which is markedly different from the spermatogenesis. Now, let's talk about oogenesis now. What are the steps involved in the oogenesis? Now, oogenesis is initiated during the embryonic developmental stage when a couple of million gametes, mother cells known as the oogonia, are formed within each fetal ovary, and no more oogonia are formed and added after the birth. So, all the oogonia, which are known as this gamete mother cell, okay, these oogonia, these are formed during the, okay, it is formed within the each fetal ovary during the, okay, fetal ovary it is formed, and there is no more formation of this oogonia after the birth. So all the oogonia, these are formed before the birth, okay, in the fetus only. Clear? Now these cells start dividing and they enter into the prophase 1, okay, of the meiotic division, and gets temporarily arrested at this stage, okay, and these cells are then known as the primary oocytes. So oogonia, okay, when oogonia, they get temporarily arrested in the prophase 1 of the meiotic division. So you know, the meiotic division consists of the different stages: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And prophase, it consists of 5 substages: leptotene, zygotene, pectine, diplotin, and dikinesis. So these are the stages of the prophase 1 of the meiosis. Okay, so what are the stages? You have the prophase. This is the first stage. Second stage is the metaphase. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and then last one is the telophase. So prophase 1 we are talking about. So means we are talking about the meiosis 1. Meiosis, you know, it is consists of 2 phases, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Prophase 1, it consists of leptotene, zygotene, pectine, diplotin, and dikinesis. Okay, so these oogonia, they enter into the prophase 1. Okay, and they get temporarily arrested at this stage, prophase 1, and these are known as the primary oocytes. Now, each primary oocyte then gets surrounded by a layer of the granulosa cells, and this is called the primary follicle now. So what is primary follicle? When the primary oocyte gets surrounded by the layer of the granulosa cells. This is known as the primary follicle. Okay. Now a large number of these follicles, they degenerate during the phase from the birth to the puberty. So a lot of these primary follicles, they degenerate. Okay. From the birth till the female individual, it reaches the puberty. Okay, so therefore at puberty only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary because most of them they get degenerated. Now the primary follicles get surrounded by more layer of granulosa cells and a new theca, and they are now known as the secondary follicles. So from the oogonia, primary follicles are primary oocyte is formed. From the primary oocyte, primary follicle is formed. From the primary follicle, secondary follicles will be formed. Okay. Now, the secondary follicle soon transformed into the tertiary follicle, which is characterized by a fluid-filled cavity called the antrum. So, secondary follicle then will again transform into the tertiary follicle. Now, the theca layer is organized into a inner theca interna and outer theca interna. Clear? So, there is one inner and there is an outer theca interna. Now, it is very important to draw your attention that is it at this stage that the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle grows in size and completes its first meiotic division. Clear? So when the tertiary follicle is formed from the secondary follicle, then the primary oocyte which is present within this tertiary follicle, now it starts dividing. Now it completes the meiotic division. Earlier, the primary oocyte, it was arrested in the prophase 1. So when the tertiary follicles are formed, then the primary oocyte grows inside and it completes its meiotic division. Clear? Now it is an unequal division resulting in the formation of large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny first polar body. So from the primary oocyte now what is forming? There is a large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny first polar body is formed. Clear? Now, the secondary oocyte retains bulk of the nutrient-rich cytoplasm of the primary oocyte. Okay. Now, does the first polar body born out of the first meiotic division divide further or it degenerates? So, this is the question they are asking. Okay. Clear? Now, you have to figure this out. Okay. What happens to the first polar body? Okay, which is formed by the first meiotic division? Does it divide or does it degenerate? Okay, so at present we are not very certain about this, so there is no answer for this question. Now the tertiary follicle further changes into the mature follicle known as the Graafian follicle. Clear? So tertiary follicle, it changes into the mature follicle which is known as the Graafian follicle now. Okay, and the Graafian follicle, it consists of the ovum. So this is the diagrammatical sectional view of the ovary. So here you can see the different structures. So here you can see this is the primary follicle. Okay, from the primary follicle, secondary follicle is formed. From the secondary follicle, tertiary follicle is formed. And the tertiary follicle, it consists of this antrum. And the tertiary follicle, it matures into the Graafian follicle. Clear? And the Graafian follicle is consists of this ovum. So Graafian follicle, it ruptures to release the egg or the ovum. Okay, and the rest of the structure, which is formed after the rupture of the Graafian follicle, this is now known as the corpus luteum. Clear? So you can say the rest of the structure which is left after the release of the pollens, or which are left after the release of the ovum or the egg. Okay, the rest of the structure, this transformed into what? Corpus luteum. So corpus luteum, it acts as a temporary endocrine gland because it secretes hormones. So basically it secretes high amount of progesterone, and it also secretes, so progesterone is secreted in very high amount, and it also secretes another hormone known as estrogen. Okay, so small amount of estrogen is also secreted. So you can see here the Graafian follicle, okay, it gets ruptured here and the ovum is released. Okay, and then rest of the structure after the release of the ovum, it transforms into the corpus luteum, and corpus luteum, it is a temporary endocrine gland. It acts as a temporary endocrine gland. Okay, why temporary endocrine gland? Because what is the function of endocrine gland? They secrete the hormones. So corpus luteum, it secretes hormones such as progesterone as well as the estrogen. Okay, clear? Now the secondary oocyte which is formed, okay, it forms a new membrane called the zona pellucida surrounding it. So we have seen, okay, the enzyme secreted by the acrosome. These degrade these proteins present in the zona pellucida. So breakage of the zona pellucida is very much important for the fusion of the two gametes to take place. Okay, or you can say it is very much important for the fertilization to take place. Clear? Now the Graafian follicle, after this, it now ruptures to release the secondary oocyte which is now known as the ovum. Clear? So secondary oocyte, okay, it forms a new membrane known as zona pellucida. Then the secondary oocyte, it transforms into the ovum, and the ovum is released, okay, by the rupture of the Graafian follicle from, okay, and this process is known as the ovulation. Clear? So now you have to tell the major differences between spermatogenesis, oogenesis. Okay, so this is very simple. Spermatogenesis takes place in the, okay, testis. Oogenesis is taking place in the ovary. Then you can tell about the different stages of the spermatogenesis. Okay, here you have spermatogonia. Spermatogonia. Here you have the cells known as oogonia. So spermatogonia forms the sperms by meiotic division. Oogonia forms the ovum by meiotic division. Okay, spermatogenesis is taking place in testes. Oogenesis is taking place in ovaries. Then you can tell the different, okay, structures which are formed during spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Okay, so this is very simple. You can identify the major difference between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. This is the location. Okay, these are the type of cells. Okay, which are involved in spermatogenesis and oogenesis. This is clear. Here the polar bodies are formed. Here no polar bodies are formed. Okay, so we can talk about the different kind of cells, different kind of structures which are produced. Clear? Now let's move on. So this is the diagrammatic representation of spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So here you can see this is the spermatogenesis figure A and this figure B is oogenesis, and here they have shown you the chromosome number per cell. Okay, so initially, so what happens? This spermatogenesis and oogenesis, these start at the puberty. When the puberty is reached, okay, these primary sex organs, these get activated and then they start secreting the hormones, okay, which help in the spermatogenesis and the oogenesis. So here spermatogenesis start with the spermatogonia. So spermatogonia, these are diploid cells. Then they undergo mitosis differentiation to form the primary spermatocytes. So these primary spermatocytes, these are also, okay, they should be diploid. Now these primary spermatocytes, okay, these undergo first meiotic division. So spermatogonia are diploid. Primary spermatocytes, these are also diploid. After first meiotic division, it will form secondary spermatocytes. So secondary spermatocytes should be haploid. Okay, it consists of 23 chromosomes. Clear? Now it undergoes secondary meiotic division to form 4 spermatids. So these are spermatids 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the secondary spermatocytes. Okay, and this is the primary spermatocytes. Clear? Now, four spermatids are formed, and these spermatids, they differentiate, they undergo differentiation to form the spermatozoa. Clear? This process was known as spermiogenesis. Clear? So these sperms, these are all haploid, and we have already studied about the structure of these sperms. It consists of the head, neck, middle piece, and then the tail. Clear? So these are all haploid cells. Here, let's talk about the oogenesis. So we start with the oogonia. So oogonia is a diploid structure. It consists of 46 chromosomes. Now, oogonia, it undergoes mitosis differentiation to form the primary oocyte. Okay, so this primary oocyte, okay, this should be diploid structure. Now it undergoes first meiotic division, okay, which is completed prior to the ovulation. Okay, then it forms the secondary oocyte, and the first polar body is formed here. Now secondary oocyte, it develops a membrane around it known as zona pellucida, and then it get transformed into the ovum. Okay, so secondary oocyte further, okay, transformed into the ovum, and it also forms the secondary polar body. Clear? So here you can see the primary oocytes, okay, and the oogonia are formed, okay, during the or inside the fetal ovaries, and no oogonia are formed after the birth. Then the primary oocyte, okay, primary oocyte, these are also formed in the fetal life, okay, and lot of primary oocyte, they degenerate when, okay, from the birth to the puberty. Lot of primary oocyte, they degenerate. We have already seen that, discussed this. Okay, then after the birth, you can see, okay, the primary oocyte, they complete the meiotic division. So they were stuck in the prophase 1. Okay, so after the birth, you can see the primary oocyte, they undergo first meiotic division, they complete their mitosis, and okay, whenever the female individual reach the puberty, then this male gametes are produced, and okay, there is the ovulation then at the puberty. Yes, after the puberty, what is happening? Secondary oocyte develops into the ovum. Clear? So here, this is the fetal life till here. Then this shows the birth of the female individual. And after the birth, this phase is known as the childhood or the adolescence phase. And then the individual will reach the puberty. And after the puberty, secondary oocyte, they start developing into the ovum. Okay, they get transformed into the ovum. Clear? So this was about the spermatogenesis and the oogenesis. Okay, so what you have to remember? You have to remember all the stages. You have to remember all the structure which are formed. Clear? So oogonia, it forms the primary oocyte. So primary oocyte, it gets covered by the granulosa cells, and then it forms the primary follicle. Okay, so primary follicle was formed. From the primary follicle, secondary follicle is formed. From the secondary follicle, tertiary follicle is formed. From the tertiary follicle, what is formed? Okay, so here in the tertiary follicle, what happens? The primary oocyte will complete the meiotic division. Okay, then the tertiary follicle, it matures into the Graafian follicle. Then the Graafian follicle will rupture. Okay, and it will release the ovule. Here, the ovum will it will release the ovum, so ovum will be released, and the Graafian follicle will then transform into the corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum, it secretes the hormones such as, okay, progesterone as well as the estrogen. Okay, this is quite clear. So corpus luteum. So we'll study about the corpus luteum when you will study the menstrual cycle. So corpus luteum, it will secrete the progesterone. So whenever the corpus luteum is formed, the level of the progesterone will increase. Clear? Apart from this progesterone, it also secretes estrogen. Small amount of estrogen is also secreted. Progesterone is also known as the pregnancy hormone. We'll also study about this. Okay, clear? Then you have to remember which of the structures are diploid and which structures are haploid. So you can see oogonia, spermatogonia, primary oocyte, primary spermatocyte. These are all diploid structure. Secondary spermatocytes, secondary oocytes, spermatids, ovum, spermatozoa. These are all haploid structures. So you have to remember all of this. Okay, a lot of question can come from this flowchart itself. Then you have to remember the phase of the life. In case of the females, in fetal phase, what is happening? Then after the birth, what is happening? Okay, then when the female individual reaches puberty, then what is happening? Then what is happening during the adult reproductive life cycle? There is a release of the ovum. Okay, clear? So this was the end of this lecture. So what we have studied about the gametogenesis in this lecture. So gametogenesis is the formation of the sperms. Now, the gametogenesis in case of the males, it is known as spermatogenesis, and in case of the females, it is known as oogenesis. Then we have studied what are the different steps which are involved in spermatogenesis and oogenesis, and I have shown you the diagrams also. Okay, showing you the structures. Okay, which are formed within the testes and the ovaries. So spermatogenesis takes place within the ovaries or within the testes, and oogenesis takes place within the ovaries. Okay, and within the testes, spermatogenesis is taking place. So both these testes as well as ovaries, these are the what primary sex organs. Okay, and what are the role of these primary sex organs? So they okay produce the gametes, and they also secrete the hormones. Okay, and these hormones, these are involved in the development of the secondary sexual characters, and they are also involved in the what process of gametogenesis. So rest of the topics will cover in the next lecture. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Okay, thank you very much for listening.